Chinese media, thank you for coming to my writing. I'm Jean Yan, Vietnamese. My writing is Scarborough Aging Point. My colleague, Gan Tang, Dog Valley.
Hi everybody, I'm so glad to be here in the backyard of my colleagues in Parliament who do such a terrific job of representing me in Canada and China. I will have the pleasure of traveling to Beijing at the end of the week of deepening these ties, which are already so robust with our communities, the people-to-people ties, to know that the Chinese community in Canada has contributed
I mean,
so
how do you evaluate the CIIE, the China International Import Export?
Oh, in Shanghai?
Yeah.
That's on today?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, and throughout the week. We, of course, have a large business delegation in Shanghai, led by Minister Macaulay, and we hope and we're certain that by having so many business leaders from Canada with political leaders there at the same time, that there will be business that will flow from that. And you may know that along with Minister Morneau, we'll be leaving for Beijing on Friday to co-chair a very important meeting with political people, investors, because we want to make sure that every avenue is explored to deepen and broaden the relationship between Canada and China, which is a very important relationship for the government.
Will the dialogue contribute effort to formulate the free trade agreement with China? Is it possible?
There are all kinds of possibilities. We'll look at sectoral agreements. We'll look at deepening right across the very many sectors and industries where already we do business with China. We'll be looking at possibilities for investment back and forth between our two countries. It's interesting to know that the Chinese-Canadian population is 5% of our total, and the Chinese languages are the third most spoken languages after English and French in Canada. I mean, we have these very important relationships, people to people, family to family, and we know that there is a mutual interest to look at ways in which we can trade more, create more value, create more wealth, create jobs. That's what trade is all about. We sign trade deals, but why do we do it? We do it because it creates wealth. And so, when we create wealth, we create jobs for our people.
What will be the topics of the talk?
Topics will be investment and job creation and deepening the trade relationships at senior levels of government and with entrepreneurs, many of whom already have platforms in Canada. But we want to look at greater opportunities because we know that there are protectionist forces in the world. Canada is not part of that. You may know that we organized a meeting of 13 nations in Ottawa just last week, 2 weeks ago, to talk about reforming the World Trade Organization. And these are people who believe in liberalized trade, and Canada is doing its part by leading these conversations, and that's very important.
So what will be the scale of this dialogue? How many people?
Well, this is not a business mission. The mission you will see in Shanghai. This is ministers who are co-chairing a conversation with counterparts in China. So this is not to be judged by the number of people who are going. It's to be judged by the willingness of the government of Canada to send ministers to have these important conversations.
So you will stay in Beijing only, or you will?
Yes, just Beijing. And then it's part of a larger journey because I'll be with the Prime Minister in Singapore for a meeting of the ASEAN leaders, and then to Papua New Guinea for the APEC summit. This will be my third visit to China. I was in Beijing and Tianjin when I was Minister of Natural Resources to look at possibilities of exporting more Canadian lumber to China. And we think that that was a successful mission, and I'm very excited to go back for a third time.
We'll start the free trade negotiation with the Chinese government.
Not a formal negotiation, but these are exploratory talks. And there are all kinds of possibilities sector by sector. And we'll be looking at ways in which we can deepen these relationships that are already established. We have relationships that go back a very long time. I was with a good friend by the name of Hartley Richardson at a meeting in Ottawa the other day, who is the CEO of Richardson International, which is a grain company. And I said, Hartley, when did your family first do business in China? He said 1910. I'm an old guy, but I wasn't even born then.
Yeah.
So these business relationships and friendships go back a very long way. And a part of the reason for these journeys is to make new friends and to look where our interests as nations can be aligned.
So even with the uncertainty of the current trade wars uncertain, and also the trade war between the U.S. and China, there's two economics, too. So Canada is still open to China, and
Canada is open to China.
and to looking for the more diversity.
Yes, because you know that the Prime Minister changed the title of my portfolio, that I'm Canada's first Minister of International Trade Diversification. Well, diversification means that we look to expand our export markets. We will always have a close trading relationship with the United States because of geography, history, culture, family connections, institutional ties, the supply chains that are so integrated. But we think that it's in the long-term interest of the Canadian economy
How
and
do
the
you
Canadian
think
people to expand our export markets.
So regarding the LNG project, how do you think it's important for the China?
Very
it's a
important.
New
Are you-
export to China,
Yes,
right?
because as you know, Shell, along with investors from China and Malaysia and Japan, have committed $40 billion in investment in Canadian liquefied natural gas. And much of that product will end up in Asia, displacing coal-fired power. This is good because of the jobs it creates for Canadians, because of the wealth it generates, and also because as citizens of the planet, we are making a very important contribution to reducing greenhouse gas emissions worldwide.
So is this the this dialogue leading to the reopening of the Canada and China trade talk?
We're going with an open mind to see where these discussions ultimately will lead. We know that these conversations really have never stopped. Ministers have been going continuously to China in our government. This is my second visit as a minister, my third as a citizen. Minister McKenna has been to China, Minister Macaulay has been to China, Minister Morneau and others. So there is a continuous conversation going, and we're happy to look at all possibilities to bring the Canadian and Chinese people closer together through these very important trading relationships.
So is this the regular China visit by senior minister?
By
Finance? Is this a regular China visit by senior minister, like finance minister?
Yes, this is part of an event, and we co-chair this event, and we're very keen to go and to meet more people to talk about more possibilities.
So it runs once a year or once in 2 years?
I'm not sure what the sequence of these meetings have been.
Annual. It's
Yeah.
annual meeting, right?
So,
My first, yeah.
so you mentioned the talk between Canada and China on free trade is exploratory so far. Do you think that after this dialogue that you and the minister on those completed, then the talks will come formal instead of exploratory?
I can't predict that. We know that there is a willingness from the Canadian government to broaden and deepen the relationship with China because we think it's in Canada's interest and we believe it's in China's interest. Where ultimately these conversations will lead, I don't know. We'll see.
Will the trade relationship between China and Canada be affected by the USMCA agreement?
No, I don't. The clause says that when the three countries want to establish formal free trade negotiations with a non-free market economy, they have a responsibility to tell the others. But there is already a provision in the current NAFTA that if any one of the three nations want to give 6 months' notice, for whatever reason, they can leave the agreement. So there's no change there. The only change is that we have agreed, and by the way, this applies as much to Mexico and the United States as it does to Canada. If we want to enter a formal conversation with a non-market economy, we have to inform the other two.